Welcome back to the show. Today I'm joined by Tracy Kim. Tracy is the CEO of Dig, an awesome concept out of New York that is actively expanding across multiple states. In this episode, we get a chance to learn more about Dig's philosophy around growth, hiring the best teams, delivering an amazing product, and also where Tracy is placing her bets for the brand's future. Hope you enjoy. Tracy, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much. Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Happy Tuesday. I'm very excited to jump into this conversation. We talked last week a bit about your journey and what you're working on right now with Dig. For my audience that doesn't know about the brand, I'm sure that a lot of my audience is spread across the entire US, but you guys are still based on the East Coast. Is that right?
That is exactly right. Yeah. So I can describe it briefly.
Tell us a
Yeah.
little about, about the brand, and then also tell us, how did you get into the CEO seat?
Okay. All right. Let me try to be brief, Daniel, but the brand. So Dig, we're a regional and by regional Northeast fast casual chain. We have 33 locations. So the northernmost location in Boston, southernmost location in our newest market, which is the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia market. We're known as sort of a real scratch food, better for you kind of bowl concept, was our origins. We're about 15 years old now. So we were one of the first sort of healthier bowl marketplace fast casual concepts on the market. We are based in New York, but again, have spread our wings throughout the Northeast. And I welcome anyone who is in the Northeast to come try us. Would love to show you our product. We're really proud of it. In terms of the second part of the question, my journey to the seat, Daniel, as you know, I have a little bit of a weird journey, a little bit of a wayward path in terms of my career. The first half of my career was very consumer focused, but more in consumer packaged goods. I did management consulting, doing mostly sales and marketing work for healthcare and consumer companies, and brought me to Weight Watchers, where I ran their licensing group. So that was sort of the first half of my career. The second half of my career was actually mostly in the tech space, a little bit more, call it stage focus. So companies who had found product market fit, but were trying to figure out how to scale and grow. So I work for companies like Shutterstock, which is in the stock photo space. I work for a company called Aptiv, which is in the fitness tech space. And then I'm now at Dig. So Dig was, to me, a great intersection between, it's obviously a consumer product, more on the retail side, but a consumer product for sure. And post-COVID, even though the concept is actually 15 years old, post-COVID, it was a little bit starting from some scratch again, because COVID was very hard in this business. So a little bit in that definitely had product market fit and was back to stabilizing and figuring out how to scale and grow. So in as brief a way possible, that's kind of my journey to the seat. But I was hired about 3.5 years ago by the founder as the COO of the company, and took over the CEO seat at this point almost 2 years ago. So I've been in this seat for a couple of years now.
Got it. That's super interesting. So before you came, the brand has already had some legs. It's been around for over, I guess, when you joined, it was about 12 years or so. At the point that you joined the brand, what were some of the things that you saw needed to be done in order to take the brand to the next level? And then also, we talked a bit about the difficulty you guys had during COVID and how you pivoted from all those learnings. Tell us a little bit more about where the brand was at the point that you joined, and where do you want to take the brand forward?
Yeah. I mean, the brand obviously had amazing legs. I mean, I think I credit Adam, who is our founder, with amazing vision in terms of developing this concept. It is a beloved Northeast brand. Um, Pre-COVID, this concept really was, the primary focus was office lunch, city office lunch, and really concentrated in New York City. And so you can imagine when COVID happened, what happened to the business. New York City disappeared, office lunch disappeared. It was very devastating. So that was really the number one focus sort of when I came on board, is really figuring out, number one, how to get that core business up, because that was a very important part of the business. That's a very big use case for us. But diversification was absolutely the focus and the name of the game. So by that, I mean geographic diversification. So building outside of just New York City. So we now have 5 in Boston. We have 2 in Philly. We have 3 in the DC area, 1 in Jersey, 1 in Westchester, 1 in Connecticut. So geographic diversity was one. 2 is it was completely a different consumer behavior following
Yeah.
COVID. And I think you know this as well as anyone. 5 days a week in the office was no longer a thing. So we were adjusting very much to a hybrid workplace. And so as a result, it was very important for us to be both urban and suburban. We still have a higher concentration in urban restaurants, just given our foundings in our early days, and we do suburban, but we are very much trying to diversify type of market. fundamentally, we want to be where the stomachs are. And sometimes they're at work and sometimes they're not. And so that's two. The third diversification I would say was really in day part diversification. So, like I said, before COVID, it was really primarily a lunch offering. I mean, I think that was probably 85% of the business. Given
Wow.
again this change in consumer behavior, we really had to diversify across day parts. We worked very hard to show, and we were lucky. Our food, if you know it, it's grilled chickens, it's salmon, it's, we do have a steak, and then we have sort of roasted vegetable sides and some cold
Right.
sides. And
It's the type
in
of
many
food
ways,
you can eat for lunch and for dinner, right?
yeah,
It's not
exactly.
it's not beholden to one day part, like something like an acai bowl as an example.
Exactly. And so, for us, it was a little bit of a marketing game, sort of making people realize that, oh, okay, wait, this is great for dinner and for lunch. It was things like developing family packs or group occasions, catering became a big part of our business. And then I guess I would say the last part of the diversification was really channel diversification. So pre COVID, it was really walk in business. So people sort of stepping out of their offices, dropping in for lunch and leaving. Pretty transactional. Again, office lunch transactional. Post COVID, a big part of the consumer behavior was there was a shift. Delivery and pickup, delivery channels in particular became very, very big part of our business. I think COVID trained people. It was always existing, but COVID made it extreme, right? People who were ordering for delivery or pickup. And so we had to adjust to that. We were not a business that was used to catering to those channels. And so even building kind of the technology to support that or finding the technology partners to support that was a big part of the change. So it was really responding to a very, very big change in the consumer landscape and the way consumers lived their lives, expedited by COVID. So here we are. So that was really been our focus. And we continue to build on that focus of diversity across all those dimensions moving forward.
That's amazing. I know that most of your food is farm to table, correct? A lot of your food is some of the you have the some of the highest qualities, and I'm sure that from doing my research, I saw that you guys also have a farm. I don't know what percent of your food comes from that farm, but during COVID or even after COVID, how did your supply chain get impacted, and how did you have to um, what did you do to adapt in order to make sure that you were getting the product delivered to all your restaurants on time and by the same high quality?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. We adjust pretty rapidly. So, as an example, we sadly no longer have the farm that you referred to. However, we still do, it's okay. We still do work with a lot of farms, obviously, but it was part of making sure our supply chain was scalable and sustainable. So, again, working with a lot of sort of the quality of the ingredients is super important to us. The culinary DNA in our company is super important to us. So we're very, very stringent in our standards for those ingredients. And we continue to be this day, even if we don't have our own farm, we still work with a lot. We also had to be very conscious of our distribution partners. So we actually did do sort of a very thorough, almost like an RFP process on distribution, because as long as we could work with one distribution partner, it was so much easier for us to be able to scale just it geographically. I would say the third thing is pre-COVID, we used to have a supply center or commissary, and that was really where, like as an example, we did a lot of veg prep in that commissary that was sent out to our restaurants because we do a lot of chopping of carrots and broccoli and sweet potatoes, et cetera. That we actually also moved away from as a result of COVID to kind of consolidate that supply chain and moved a lot of those, well, all of those tasks into restaurant. And so we have the advantage of having a shoulder period, the period between lunch and dinner, where it is slow in terms of sales. And so we take advantage of that labor to help us with some of the prep that we used to do in the supply center. We were sort of methodical in terms of that rollout because we don't want to disrupt the operations too much, but it was really fine. And given the distribution of kind of the sales across, that was more evenly split across day, it ended up working out very well for us. That's kind of what we did on the supply chain. But again, very proud of our standards in terms of ingredients and really was sort of trying to make the actual distribution of those more efficient.
That's amazing. That's really cool. I think the commissary idea is a really good idea for a growing brand, especially one that is in high dense urban areas, because you're dealing with square footage is really expensive. It's all about consolidating the restaurant, making it as small as possible. And when things are extremely busy, it's tough to do all that prep. But after COVID, you moved away from that. You started to embrace doing a lot of that prep inside the four walls. I think of some brands that I really enjoy being able to walk in and seeing the prep happen in front of your eyes. It's something magical, right? And you can see that the ingredients that you're consuming is coming from, from it's fresh. It's being done right there in front of you. So I'm sure that that must have had a positive effect on the way that if you do show the prepping of the ingredients, it must have had a positive effect on customer perception of your brand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We do have open kitchens in most of our restaurants because we are proud of that culinary DNA. You're exactly right. It was very, very actually matching with our brand values. And honestly, our teams, I was worried that there would be resistance. There was none. I mean, our teams embraced this. They're very proud of the fact that they know that they actually have real knife skills. Knife skills are life skills, as the teams say.
I agree. Yes.
And it really is just a big part of our culture. We don't mind when there are big boxes of sweet potatoes kind of out even in the main dining room. It's okay. It's like it's a real kitchen. It's kind of a kitchen at a larger scale that you would have at home. That's what we pride ourselves on. So I think you're spot on.
Tell me a little bit more about the growth strategy. So, in terms of the growth ahead, as you described, post COVID, you're starting to open up more stores in the suburban areas. When you're thinking about the growth ahead and how you're positioning the brand, do you want to continue scaling up in the urban areas, or is the growth ahead primarily in the suburbs? And if so, what is the challenge around opening up stores in the suburbs for your specific brand?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for the growth ahead, as we think about if we were thinking about a brand new market, what we do know about our brand that's just given the history of the brand is that we tend to ramp very, very quickly in an urban setting. And then once sort of there is brand awareness, the suburbs do, especially the commuter suburbs, end up doing well. So if I'm talking about sort of the immediate next year, we very much have a lot of white space infill between Boston and DC. As an example, the Philly market happens to be doing very, very well for us. We have 2 urban restaurants, so we are going to continue to build at that market. Of our next 5 openings, 4 of them are Philly based. 1 is in the city of Philadelphia, and 3 are in commuter suburbs of Philadelphia. So it's not to say that we're only pursuing suburban locations, but in a place where we already have sort of at least an urban center kind of established, suburban locations is where we would primarily target and then fill in like any remaining sort of urban kind of opportunity that we have. If I was going to, pretty soon we're going to have to start thinking about our next MSA. Again, like the next year is going to be really a lot of infill between Boston and DC. In the newer markets, more balance between urban and suburban locations. In our very strong like in the New York market, we're only look at suburban locations because we have a very, very strong and dense urban
Right,
footprint.
right.
If I'm thinking about a new market altogether, I would actually focus on urban first, and then with a
Interesting.
fast follow to commuter suburbs and outer suburbs from there. So it's really
Interesting.
dependent on like age and stage of market is the way I would answer that question because we do have to be diverse. We can't be only suburban. We can't be only urban. And so again,
Right.
totally depends on like the stage of the market at that point, if
I'm
that makes
sure
sense.
that
Yeah.
that does make sense. Yeah, and let's use an example of moving into trying out Atlanta, for example. I've talked to
Yeah.
a lot of brands and a lot of founders of brands describe Atlanta as a very tough market. Right, it's where
Yeah.
brands either go thrive or go to die.
Yeah.
And if you're going into a very competitive market to bring a brand to a brand new region, you could literally just be like swallowed up and get kicked out in a couple of years. But if you do start off in a suburban area, it's a good opportunity to kind of test out a new state, test out a new territory. And if people get acclimated to your brand, I think it then becomes a little bit easier perhaps to move into the urban areas. I think that's a good way to frame it. And I've heard both perspectives. It all depends on the brand, right? If one brand is very much focused on the quick grab lunch and go type of concept, I would probably push more into the urban areas versus something like what you guys are trying to become. That's very interesting. Around the growth, do you consider franchising? I know we spoke a little bit about your current prospect around franchising. It seems like it's not very aligned with your brand and the standards that you have. You want to tell us a little bit more about whether or not franchising is an option?
Yeah, the age-old question for a lot of brands. Yeah, so for us, currently all of our locations are company owned. As you allude to, and to your point, the reason we do that is so that we can maintain very strict quality controls and quality standards. I mean, look, Daniel, I would never say no in terms of consideration of a possible growth path. So I never rule any growth path out. But I think for us, we would pause a second on franchising for exactly that reason. Our model as you know better than I do, franchising really works well with very simple operational concepts, whether it's sandwiches, whether it's cookies,
Right.
whether it's coffee. For us, because there is real cooking involved, we would have to be very careful in who we pick. So it is not on the horizon today. In terms of possible growth paths, but I never rule any growth path out because it is a way to grow pretty quickly if you can figure out how to maintain those standards with the right partners.
I agree. That's ultimately it's the age old question. It's like, when is the right time, and is our brand something that can be franchised? And I think oftentimes I see brands that probably shouldn't be franchised because of
Yeah.
the complexity of the operations, and also the you also alluded to the fact that you have to be very careful with the types of operators or types of people that you go into business with, right? Oftentimes we see brands bringing on everyone and not doing a good job of vetting the right partner. When you are thinking about your teams and the managers that you bring on and the partners that you bring on within Dig, what are the types of attributes and qualities that you look for? And tell us a little bit more about Dig's DNA.
Yeah, I'm really proud of our team, Daniel. I have to say that. I mean, I'm really proud of our team. I will say this. I think that the qualities are as follows. We still are a relatively small, it's all relative, but we're a relatively small company in the scheme of things, concentrated in the Northeast. So, number one is we still look for that person who does have that entrepreneurial, scrappy spirit because we don't have the resources of major national brands yet. And so it does require you to do a little bit of doing and a little bit of player coaching in a way. And so that's a very important attribute. The other thing is there's so many things that happen in the day-to-day business with regards to details. You want someone who knows how to react quickly and in the moment and is not sort of waffling on that. So that's one. Two is we actually have a company value that is no assholes, and we stand by that. I will tell you, we have no assholes
I
on
like
this team.
I like that.
There must be one somewhere, actually, Daniel. But I honestly, we're very proud of the fact that it is genuinely sort of a team first, me second kind of approach. It is, we have a no asshole policy and we do stick hard to that. The third is I do think that our team is collaborative in nature. And so I think that in the like so many businesses, but in the restaurant business in particular, there's no way you can do this on your own. Literally no way. And so somebody who has really sort of a teamwork and a collaborative approach is really important. There is such a thing as being overly democratic, however. And so you do need to have leadership of that, of course. But I do believe that good ideas come from anywhere. Continue to believe that. I think if you start your career early in management consulting like I did, you're trained from birth, from career birth in a way to know that good ideas can come anywhere. When I first started as an associate, was expected to be sort of leading these projects and have an opinion. And so I expect the same thing today. And so sort of am blind a bit to hierarchy, honestly, for that reason, because it really is about the substance. So that's what I would say about the team.
I agree. It's about empowering your team to have those opinions and to be vocal about them, but also having a fine balance of taking leadership and taking action on things that are very important and requires one person to really make that final decision. You brought up an interesting point around coming from management consulting. I've also started my career in management consulting as well, and transitioning into the restaurant industry for me was a bit daunting at first. I love food. I probably go out to restaurants more than the average person, but when walking into the restaurant industry, there was a lot that I didn't know. And for yourself, I'm sure it was probably very eye opening.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about what was that transition like for you, moving from tech to working in the restaurant industry. And also, you took over a founder that was with the brand for over a decade. What was that experience like?
Yeah. Okay. So for the first part of the question, I mean, you know it, you lived it too. The transition from consulting to operating is a big leap because consulting is often academic and intellectual. It's very thoughtful. I think many of the people I work with are still sort of the smartest people I've worked with today. But the difference between that and getting things done, I think, is just such a different skill set in a way. So, in an operating world, it's the nice thing about consulting is it does teach you sort of the scale of power and influence because you don't actually have accountability over anything you're trying to advise a company on. Zero
Sure.
accountability. You're like an objective viewpoint. And so you're trying to like persuade the person that you're
Right.
right on something. Like, this is my advice. Let me tell you why. Let's talk about how to do it. But like, it really is like a persuasion, power, and influence game. I find that to be super helpful in operations because it's a little bit, that is the one similarity where running a team and managing a business, because you can't do it on your own, the most important thing is actually getting kind of what the measurement is. Like, what metric are you managing towards? Getting that right. Cause then you don't care. I mean, I care, but you micromanage a little bit less how people get there. You're just managing for what you're wanting to achieve. But it's the same skill of like trying to power and influence people into achieving that. And it is for me, it was a steep learning curve, like actually not having full control over that situation. Really, like you're reliant on like an amazing team or hopefully amazing team to really get that done. You're relying on power and influence. You're relying on being dictatorial when you need to be, but I try not to do that every day. It's not my style. I'd rather empower people to be able to hit their goals. You can't always do that. You have to be dictatorial
I
sometimes,
agree.
as you know. With regards to the second part of the question on restaurants, I mean, the transition to restaurants was super marked for me because it was the first analog business I'd worked in a long time. And so there's just little things that you don't worry about tech. It's like, oh God, I have to worry about the fact that like the floor is sticky in that restaurant because like the paint like scraped off they're cleaning it, but the paint scraped off the tile. Or you have to worry about the fact that the Wi-Fi is done and nobody can get an order on the POS. Like it's just like these very practical, tactical things that make or break the sales of a day at a restaurant, which is different than tech. You have an outage and you're like, calling your engineer madly saying fix this outage. It's very, very different. It's so analog versus in the ether. And then the second thing is just,
Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
yeah, and there's just so many people involved with restaurants and running a restaurant that just like I marvel at the skills of our restaurant CEOs and GMs and multi-unit operators because their ability to keep track of the thousands of details related to people specifically. And like, you could write a book. The people in our field and Allison is the woman who runs HR at our company, literally could write volumes of books on the stories that you can't make this stuff up stories. And so like that transition to those real world practical things that come with running I'm calling it an analog business. It's not a joke. It is a lot. It's hard discipline and it's hard work, is how I would describe it.
Absolutely. And for me as a technology provider in the restaurant industry, it gives me some pause. You mentioning the fact that the little things about running a restaurant are often more important than the tech that powers it behind the scenes, right? If there's a power outage, the restaurant cannot function properly. And that always comes first, being able to deliver high quality food to the guest, plain and simple. Like you're cooking,
Totally.
you're delivering good food, and you're delivering good quality hospitality. Everything else is empowering the business and second nature. So let's say we talk in a year from now, 2 years from now.
Yeah.
If we do another episode, what would you have wanted to accomplish? And for the next year, what are some of the big growth initiatives that you have for your teams?
So number one, we obviously want to be opening new restaurants because we believe that this concept has a place pretty much in any city in the US for sure. We're very domestically focused still, but we certainly believe that this concept has a place in the world. And so that's number one. Number two is I am really proud of the fact that we do have so much internal growth. And so as it relates to kind of the teams, because I think in the restaurant business in particular, at least based on my history, it's so people dependent. And so I want to create some people who I look forward to working for in the future, like that. You know what I mean? It's like people who have potential and promise and have that grit. And I want to see those people rise up to senior level positions. Those are the two things. It's as simple as that. The second might be, I mean, they're equally important to me. I think they go hand in hand. You need one to do the other, but it is like such a source of pride looking at somebody who has become senior in the organization and feeling like you had a hand in that. I mean, that is real impact on the world in a way. So those are the two things I would say for a year from now, even 5 years from now. I think those two would be consistent in terms of out of my mouth.
I love it. I love it. That's always the goal is create an environment where your teams can grow. And we struggle as an industry with, I think, misconception that the industry doesn't allow for career mobility. But most of the people that I've talked to that are now running the restaurants, that are the CEOs, that are the COOs, actually started in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's actually probably 80% of the people I talk to always begin with started in the kitchen or I started as a busboy. And that's what really gives me a lot of excitement about this industry and the fact that you are able to rise up. I love that you're pursuing that above,
Yeah.
that's top two agenda. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let me ask you
Yeah.
one more question, Tracy, before we sign off. I always
Sure.
like to ask my guests who in it doesn't have to be in the restaurant industry, but I like to kind of box it around that. Who in this industry inspires you? Who is someone that you look up to, or at least maybe acquired some of their wisdom or blueprints and kind of modeled yourself after?
You know who I've recently been obsessed with and I've been watching every sort of is actually Julia Child. So I just think her story was remarkable, honestly. I mean, she basically got her start. I mean, she'd obviously worked hard up to it, but she basically got her start in this industry in America when she was in her 50s. She was not a spring chicken, and she literally like invented a whole new category of food TV in this country. I think that's remarkable. Just like her passion translated into something that literally changed an industry. And so that's who I would say. I think she's fascinating. I've, again, been obsessed with every movie and documentary and show, and there have been a lot that have been made about her. You can ask my husband. I've watched like some of these movies like 8 times now, in the last 3 weeks kind of thing. So that's who I would say. There's so many inspiring people though in this industry. To your point, I do think it's an industry that has really sort of empowered a lot of people to start their lives over or to really start from really bare bones and work their way up. I think about David, who's the head of our New York market, which is our largest market. To your point, he started as a dishwasher and he worked his way up and he now runs 20 of our restaurants. And so is quite
Very cool.
senior. Yeah, it's great. It's amazing. It's amazing and inspiring. And if you met him, I literally feel like something is wrong with someone if they don't like this person. I mean, he is just a wonderful human being on top of everything. So anyway, I digress, but that is the answer to my question.
Joey Child. I love it. The first food influencer. Tracy, thank you so much for joining us on the show, telling us a little bit more about your background and your unique insight into how to develop a strong team and develop a strong brand. I think that I'm very excited about the growth ahead for Dig. And I have my fingers crossed that maybe you guys will traverse the nation and come here to California one day.
We will make it there. We'll make it there. Well, I appreciate you inviting me to this podcast. Thank
My
you so much,
pleasure.
Danielle, and wishing you all the best.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to talking soon.
Likewise. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Thank you very much.